So one of Africa's richest men is changing seats at the table. You see, Patrice Motsepe, the South African dollar billionaire, is stepping down as executive chair of African Rainbow Minerals, the mining empire that he built from scratch. And look, when a man worth billions adjusts his role, it's worth revisiting how he got there in the first place. So let's start by saying that Motsepe wasn't exactly gifted mines on his 18th birthday. You see, he grew up in Soweto, where his father ran a spaza shop serving mine workers. He then went on to become a mining lawyer, learned how deals were structured, and in 1994, as South Africa reset itself, he founded Future Mining. So a few years later, he started buying gold shafts that many of the mining houses were quietly offloading. Now, they weren't the shiny flagship mines. They were the ones that the bigger companies didn't think were worth the trouble. You see, gold prices were low, the risk was high, but Motsepe structured the deal so that he only largely paid from future profits. And so when gold prices ended up recovering, those overlooked mines suddenly became highly profitable. And by 2003, African Rainbow Minerals was formed, and it didn't stop at gold, diversifying across iron ore, platinum, coal, and more. So to understand the scale, 1,000,000 seconds is about 12 days. 1,000,000,000 seconds is more than 51 years. That's the difference between wealth and generational wealth. You see, Motsepe's ballpark net worth sits north of $3 billion, making him one of Africa's wealthiest individuals. The result of building and holding major stakes in companies like ARC, Bank, and Sanlam that generate billions in value. So why step down now? Well, look, it's not a scandal, it's not retreat. You see, the new Johannesburg Stock Exchange rules now prohibit a board chair from also serving as an executive director. So Motsepe will remain as a non-executive chair. The title changes, but the influence doesn't disappear. The founder just moves from driving the truck to sitting at the head of the convoy. But not every South African success story is trending in the same direction. Just a few years ago, South Africa was one of the world's favorite film sets. You see, big budget productions like Mad Max, Avengers, and Maze Runner had scenes shot here. Foreign crews poured in, and the local sound stages were fully booked. Billions flowed into the economy, and the country had built a reputation as a cost-effective, globally competitive destination for film and TV. Now, a big reason for that boom was the South African Film and Television Production Incentive, a government-backed rebate that refunds up to 40% of qualifying local production spend. So, in simple terms, film here, hire locally, and spend more money here, and government repays a portion back. It was designed to attract foreign investment and grow local production. But you see, after COVID stalled projects, Treasury reallocated incentive funds, and new approvals effectively froze. And so the adjudication panel hasn't met since early 2024, leaving big projects in limbo and a backlog of hundreds of millions. Now, industry groups say that the sector has contracted sharply in recent years. Producers claim that projects that were pre-approved haven't been paid out, and that processes have become unpredictable. Government says it is working through the backlog and now plans to redesign the incentive, potentially adding a new funding model. But on the ground, crews are struggling to find work. Some are leaving the industry altogether, and South Africa's reputation as a reliable filming destination is under significant pressure. But government spending decisions are reshaping more than just one corner of the country. One of South Africa's biggest social relief grants is about to be completely redesigned. You see, the 370 Rand social relief of distress grant introduced during COVID as a temporary measure has now been extended through to March 2027. But government says that its next version won't simply be a monthly payout. You see, it's expected to shift towards something more permanent and more closely linked to employment, skills development, and work-seeking requirements. Now, that shift is happening while systems tighten. You see, SASSA has reviewed roughly 240,000 grants and suspended more than 70,000 after these income verification checks flagged non-compliance. So while millions continue to rely on this grant each month, eligibility is being scrutinized far more aggressively. But the pressure point here is cost. You see, at roughly 40 billion Rand a year, this relatively new grant has become a major budget item. Treasury says that it is pushing for deeper data matching with banks, SARS, and credit bureaus to try and clamp down on fraud and double dipping, saying that the reviews are already saving tens of millions each month. But so the balancing act just seems to be between protecting a lifeline in a country with sky-high unemployment without locking in a bill that the state can't realistically maintain. And before we cruise on to our bagel bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, the Education Department reportedly plans to phase out ranking provinces solely based on matric pass rates, replacing it with an inclusive basket that also tracks math and science participation, bachelor passes, and throughput. And so the aim here is to reward quality and retention, not just headline pass percentages. MTN has launched a 35 billion rand bid to buy out 75% of IHS towers that it doesn't already own, valuing the group at about $6.2 billion, including debt, in a move to cut leasing costs and regain control of its tower infrastructure. And Capitec has overtaken FirstRand as South Africa's most valuable bank, hitting a record 542 billion rand valuation after a bullish update signaled that profits could rise by up to 25% to around 17 billion rand, driven by a strong client growth and transaction volumes. Now, we'll likely cover this in more detail in tomorrow's show, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss it. And just a quick side note, if you do prefer your news on the go, whether you're running or driving or hitting some weights, you can find us on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Links to those are either in our description below or our bio. And on to our bagel bite of the day. You know, I've received a couple messages lately from some of you guys saying, hey Christian, these bagel bites are getting too easy. And so I've taken that to heart. So buckle up. Let's see what you got. The question is, which scientist introduced the concept of entropy? Is it A, Isaac Newton, B, Max Planck, or C, Rudolf Clausius? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. South Africa sits at a rare climatic crossroads. You see, the Atlantic shapes the west, the Indian feeds the east, and the cold Southern Ocean system spiral in from below. And so that three-way tug of war is why our weather rarely picks a lane. So to the west, the cold Benguela current rolls in from the Antarctic along the Atlantic coast. It keeps the west coast dry, cool, and famous for fog rather than humidity. To the east, the warm Agulhas current sweeps in down the Indian Ocean side, feeding moisture into KZN and pushing summer thunderstorms inland. And from the south, cold fronts spin in from the Southern Ocean, smashing into the Cape with wind and rain. So here's the interesting part. You see, most countries deal with one dominant ocean system. We deal with competing ones: warm versus cold, moist versus dry, tropical systems in the east, Mediterranean winters in the southwest. And so that's why Cape Town and Durban can feel like they're on different continents even when they're in the same country. And so when your Joburg forecast flips in 24 hours or the Cape gets 4 seasons in a day, it's not by chance, it's geography, 3 oceans and one very complicated weather personality. And as for that bagel bite, the answer is Rudolf Clausius, the physicist who gave entropy its name. And so in simple terms, entropy measures how energy spreads out. So for example, drop an ice cube in a warm drink and that cold disperses until everything evens out. Now that's spreading, that's entropy increasing. So Rudolph's insight was that in a closed system, energy moves from organized to dispersed, which explains a lot about the universe and also why your room never seems to tidy itself. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, this is just your reminder, if you do prefer your news on the go, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day further. Be kind to one another, and we will catch you all tomorrow for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.